because there are moments that matter. If you think about the times that you've been at work, there are really moments that make or break, and being clear about what they are and then defining them so that there's a way and an approach to dealing with that, knowing what they are, understanding what good looks like, and adding the personal touches. So when you join an organisation, when you have a performance conversation, when you have a REM review, when you leave an organisation, they're just a few examples of the moments that matter. And I don't know that organisations and HR spend enough time getting really specific around, are we clear about the moments that matter in our business, and are we clear about the experience we want to create?
Look, I think for a well-rounded HR leader, it's really important for them to have some level of insight as to how those things work. So if I kind of break up what the question is in terms of payroll specifically versus HR technology, does every kind of HR leader need to have a deep understanding of how payroll works? Not necessarily, but I think it is important to understand the linkages, and that payroll really brings to life really critically important facets of how we set up our workforce, such as how we execute on our enterprise bargaining agreements, which is huge for us. In Orica, we have substantial sort of union representation, particularly around our sites. So making sure that we are executing on the terms of those accurately and compliantly is critically important. And the connection between those things, I think, starts from negotiation of those agreements through to how well are we going to be able to execute on this? Is it very complex and difficult to understand and needs legal interpretation to ensure that we're doing it correctly? Or are we doing it in such a way that is going to be easy to execute on, easy to get right, easy to see where it could go off the rails? So there's lots of connections there that you might not see from the 50,000 feet view. And I do think it is worthwhile understanding how those connections come into play.
Well, I've seen a significant change. I think there's some really great programs out there in industry. I know that we're, significant supporters of a number of those, but there's lots of different ones to support the different parts of diversity. I think engineering has generally always acknowledged that there's a low representation amongst gender, in that it tends to be heavily swayed to more male representation, and that is the case globally. I think it's not just within Australia, but there has been a lot of work also within other areas of diversity as well. And there's significant papers being written and a lot of discussion about our answer to a skills shortage is to use DI to make jobs that are skills short acceptable and interesting to people who would have not necessarily been interested before. Definitely have the capability and the skills, but it just was never maybe talked about or discussed with them, so they never took an interest. And it's definitely an option for us to address the skills gap going forward.
But what I do aim for, and what we all aim for, is the achievement zone. So that's where we have high psychological safety and high accountability. This is led by a leader who really is challenging themselves and everyone in their team. And people are challenging one another in this really supportive environment. And, to drive that constant need for change, an ability to embrace change, it really is driven by a leader who is getting people to, have that curiosity to look at things differently, to learn from mistakes, to be able to make mistakes and not get into trouble, and to really be excited about the future and where they're going, and knowing that the effort is going to be worth it.
And I think, questions are really powerful. And I think questions like, help me understand why you think that way. And exploring and spending time understanding their perspective will give you insights to be able to help to offer different perspectives. And I often think, as a marketer, storytelling is so powerful. And you could look at the same issue through 5 different perspectives and get 5 stories. And I think storytelling becomes then a really powerful way of people sharing their stories and their experiences on potentially the same topic. And through that, we then get a collective full picture and understanding of how we're feeling. No one's right or wrong it's their beliefs and their experiences that have shaped what they have. But it's through that conversation, that storytelling and that experience that together we can then come and kind of agree or find the right pathway forward.
Yes, our EVP is a pretty easy sell.
Yeah.
And most people these days would like to do something for a purpose. So wastewater plants that we operate, sometimes for our customers, sometimes independently, they are basically big batteries. Maybe not what you'd want to think of a wastewater treatment plant, but they are. So, for example, one of the plants we operate in Adelaide on behalf of SA Water, it's 99% self-sufficient through biogas.
Wow.
So, the opportunity that it provides in terms of new technologies coming to market where some of those plants could be net exporters. So we've got a state-of-the-art plant in Borneo, southeast of Melbourne and in the Mornington Peninsula that has, when it reaches capacity, the ability to be a net provider into the grid.
Wow.
So that is the future of what how we treat wastewater, and then water as well is a really scarce resource.
Staying humble, and instead of thinking we're special, we have something special going on here, of course people should come and work for us. Staying humble and think people don't know who we are. So to me that goes back to your actions speak louder than your words. I mean that's always the case, but especially true at the start when your brand is not known. So how you handle anything from candidate experience, how you say, sorry, you didn't get this role. So how you handle candidates who aren't successful, all the way to a successful candidate's offer, what your onboarding experience looks like. And that includes both your people and culture, your people leader, your IT, the whole spectrum really, not just a PNC or IT's responsibility, right? And so a key piece in that journey is your leadership. And so when someone's onboarded, from an employee experience, you don't want them to say to you, my people leader is great, but people and culture is not great, or vice versa. People and culture is great, but my people leader is a bit, not sure what to do with me right now.